Inside the dust and chaos of the prison rodeo, a 3,000-pound bull is the ultimate judge of a man's resolve. The beast decides the fate of the man until the man takes control of his own life by grabbing the beast by the horns. For inmates who are serving long to life sentences and maximum security prisons throughout the state of Louisiana, survival used to mean pure violence. But now they are trading in the yard shanks for a quiet, heavy redemption that's only found in the gospel of the Holy Bible. And in 2026, during the Angola prison rodeo, even as we speak, inmates are surrendering their hearts to Christ in the midst of the boots, the dust, the mud, and the blood. This is the story of the Angola prison rodeo and how a multi-award-winning musician traveled all the way to St. Francisville, Louisiana, to have an impact on convicted murderers, convicted rapists, thieves, and the worst of the worst. Only a man who wanted to make a difference in society would even spend his time going to a prison rodeo to try to make an impact on men that have mostly been forgotten and by no fault of their own. Daddy Yankee from Puerto Rico has came to the Bayou State to visit inmates inside the correctional system, specifically speaking at the Angola prison rodeo. And this is the story. The Angola prison rodeo. You might be asking if I've ever been there, considering I did all my time in the state of Louisiana. And my answer to that would be, though I haven't been incarcerated in Angola, I have actually been to the rodeo once. Here's something I want you to understand about the Angola prison rodeo. It is not just a prison rodeo that is designed for the inmates of Angola, but it's also designed to have participation from the other prisons throughout the state of Louisiana. Often, the different prisons have football teams, baseball teams, boxing teams that go against one another. I always wish that they had a Scrabble team, because I would have been part of the traveling Scrabble team. But they never did have a traveling Scrabble team. They did have Toastmasters, and Toastmasters would occasionally, mix and match with the prisons and have banquets from one prison to the next. So in Louisiana, they do like to keep the line of communication open from prison to prison. And so during the Angola prison rodeo, each one of the state prisons, and sometimes the smaller satellite camps, sometimes may get an invite, and always the state prisons will get an invite to go to the Angola prison rodeo. So you will have inmates coming to the Angola prison rodeo from DCI, from DeQuincy, from Wade, from Allen, Cottonport, whatever. They'll come to the Angola prison rodeo to, participate in it, to witness it, to be a part of it. And so my last year in prison, the very last year I done in prison, the very end of my prison sentence, and I think it was October, I was chosen because I was in pre-release and I was working my way out, and I had finally behaved myself. I was able to get on the bus from DeQuincy, Louisiana, and go to the Angola prison rodeo. And I got to, sit in the stands and watch it. And, so there was DeQuincy. All the inmates from DeQuincy were sitting in one spot, and maybe next to DeQuincy was WCI, and then there was DCI, and then over is Angola. And so you just can't walk in and out, but the different prisons are there inside the stands. And I want to show you a picture so you have a concept of how big the Angola prison rodeo is. As you know, Angola prison is the biggest prison in the United States of America per land and per inmate capacity. It holds the record on both. It's a big old farm. Every prison in the state of Louisiana is a farm, sitting on mass amounts of acreage. But Angola is the biggest farm in the entire United States of America when it comes to prisons. It's sitting on an old plantation, and in old Indian burial mounds called the Tunica Hills. And that's where the Angola prison is located, in St. Francisville, Louisiana, the Tunica Hills. It's actually a hilly area inside St. Francisville. And I've been to St. Francisville many times. It's actually a nice place, and it's one of probably the most expensive places in the state of Louisiana to live. And isn't the irony in that? One of the places you don't want to live in the state of Louisiana is the farm, the Ponderosa, Angola prison. But one of the places everybody wants to live in Louisiana is St. Francisville, the same city and zip code of Angola. Even I think Angola has its own zip code too. But it also has its own radio station, its own magazine. It's a very big place. When you have over 4,000 inmates, that's a lot of inmates. You could do time in Angola and you might go decades and never see a dude who was there when you was there because he was on a different yard than you. Well, every year, twice a year, the Angola Rodeo comes, and it's a great time for inmates to participate and be involved in something positive. And I just literally today, a couple hours ago, ran across this through the news feeds of Daddy Yankee being at the Angola Prison Rodeo. And I noticed it, my wife actually noticed it on a YouTube channel that I want to give credit to called God Behind Bars. It's a Christian YouTube channel that focuses on redemption of inmates throughout the United States and everywhere. You know, convicts, prisoners who give their life to Jesus and the impact that Christ has on inmates who are serving time in prisons. Well, Daddy Yankee is at Angola as we speak this weekend. He was there today. The Angola Rodeo goes on for 3 days. And he was there and he was witnessing the people before the actual rodeo started. And I want to show you a picture. This is a picture of Daddy Yankee. He's in the middle of the arena at the Angola Prison Rodeo. And he's telling the story in the beginning. And I'm going to drop the link to the video in the description. You should go check it out. It's got some positive moments, especially if you speak Spanish, because obviously Daddy Yankee is from Puerto Rico and he speaks Spanish. And while he was at Angola, I'm sure he had access to the prison, because during the rodeo, once you get credentials, you can move throughout the prison and you can interact with the prisoners. That happens often, especially with Christian organizations or faith organizations that are able to go into the prison and interact with the inmates, because they're bringing revival, or they just dare to, because inmates can practice their right to freedom of religion. So he's talking to this pastor, one of the pastors of Angola, and Angola has a bunch of pastors. If something you don't know about Angola, Angola has a lot of certified and licensed and ordained ministers through different ministerial schools throughout the state of Louisiana. So there's no shortage of pastors who are official pastors through certification and ordinance in the state of Louisiana. So he's talking to this dude and he brings him on stage, and I'm going to be showing you pictures throughout this discussion, because you know the Pin and the Shank is the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube, and we usually cover some insane, depraved, disturbing crimes throughout the United States and the world. But today I felt like we should focus on something positive, because that in itself is unusual and unique when you add it to prison. And I want to show you something about Angola, and I'll be flashing pictures across the screen as I talk. I've screenshotted some, credit goes to God Behind Bars. But one thing I want you to notice is that Daddy Yankee, he doesn't sing Christian music. He sings secular music, but he's also a Christian, and he's made it clear. He's actually been quite controversial in recent times, because you can quote me on this, or you can fact check me on this. But I think he even made a statement that he did not want to do any performances with the dude who done the Super Bowl, Bad Bunny or Bad Baby or whatever his name is. I don't know about anything about him or his music. And if I'm being quite honest, I really don't know much of Daddy Yankee's music neither. I'm just familiar with who he is. But when I seen him at the prison preaching the gospel and bringing positivity to them dudes, well, that touched my heart. And I said, that's what we're going to cover on the channel. And I know people don't like positive stuff. They rather the negative stuff. It gets more clicks and more views. But I'm hoping that this is enjoyable to somebody if you're watching this, because I'm going to share some stuff about the state of Louisiana, the state of prisons. I'm going to show you a picture. Here's a picture right here. As you can see, a couple different pictures. I'll flash as I'm speaking, of inmates that are listening to Daddy Yankee and the other pastor who he met in Angola speaking about Christ. And something that, unless you're familiar with it, you're not familiar with it. See, I go to a lot of Pentecostal and non-denominational services and churches, and it's very normal to have two different languages, usually Spanish and English, being spoke. So this is kind of the setup that they have. Daddy Yankee will speak in Spanish, and then the dude will, quote him or interpret for him, vice versa. That's normal. You see that all the time. Now they're beginning to have, I'm assuming when I was going through the prison system in Louisiana, they had less Spanish inmates, but over the decades, I talked to some other people I know inside the prisons, there's more Spanish inmates now than there ever has been in Louisiana. And you know what's funny? In Louisiana, the political system inside the prisons is not like the West Coast. You don't have to segregate here. And I'm showing you different pictures. You can see whites and blacks and Spanish. They're all they're showing is behind their heads as you look forward toward the stages. There's difference. There is no racial segregation in the South. Y'all always talk about the South as segregated. It's the most least segregated place. Our prisons aren't segregated. Whites and blacks could be friends. They could be best friends in prison. They could eat from the same bowl. They could be cellies. They could be cool with one another, have each other's back. Now, do whites tend to stick with whites and blacks tend to stick with blacks? Yeah, they do. And do things usually kick off? Yes, it can. But it's nowhere near what it is on the feds or the West Coast. In Louisiana, man, it's survival, man. You working in that field. And these dudes have all been doing field work. And if you look at the picture, you can see some of the inmates wearing DCI shirts. I'll flash some across the screen. I'm assuming there's a large portion of inmates from DCI, because DCI and Angola are actually close to one another. DCI is, right outside of St. Francisville. It's in Jackson, Louisiana, which is not far from St. Francisville. So it's easy for those two prisons to have, mix and match, where they go to each other for tournaments and stuff like the rodeo and football teams and all that. But the other prisons are a lot further. Anyway, you see all the different prisoners together, and they're all lifting their hands, and they're all, there's even one part, I'm going to show it right here, where Daddy Yankee does like an altar call. Man, this is hard, y'all. Look at the guys who came up. And I just showed you a couple pictures. There was a lot of dudes there. But when somebody does an altar call and you know that everybody's watching you, it's still hard. You don't want to do it because you don't want to be on the spotlight. You might have fear of stepping forward in front of everybody. You might be embarrassed. You might not want nobody to think you're weak. So there's a lot of emotions for a man. You got to know who you are to step up on an altar call in prison. I know, because I did it a couple times. And the one time I did it, it shifted my entire life. I think I'm the man I am today because I stepped up to an altar call when nobody else would. When I was in Allen Correctional Center, they had an altar call. I was the only person who went to the front. I think, if I remember right, the only one. And I was at the top of the bleachers. I had to walk down from the gym. And I'm like, Lord. And the Lord's like, you want your life to change, son? Obey me. Walk forward. And that might sound harsh to some people. God don't talk to me like he spoke to me like that. And he's been speaking to me ever since. And the more I obey him, the more he can trust me. And he's taking care of me, took care of me in prison. So that's what Daddy Yankee's doing, man. He's bringing the gospel, man. And there's some awesome pictures. I keep my flashing them out as I keep speaking, man. Look at how cool this is, man. So these guys are coming forward. Then at the very end, he does, a bigger prayer for everybody. And I would say, if you don't want to watch the whole video, go to the end and listen to the prayer. It's really good. The pastor who is from Angola, the Spanish pastor, he's also obviously bilingual. He speaks an English prayer at the end, and it's the best part of the video, in my opinion. And Daddy Yankee invited other inmates on the stage with him. And for a lot of these inmates, man, this is a big deal. This is a pinnacle to their day, man. They got to do something really cool. They get to go back to the dormitory and back on the yard. They'll be talking about this for years to come, that they were part of this. And who knows what happened to their inner man during this event, where they got, preached to. And you could say what you want, but like I said, Daddy Yankee's not a gospel artist. He's a secular artist. He's also a Christian, and he wanted to make an impact. And my hat goes off to him, and I respect it. And I'm going to post a link to another video I have where I share some positivity, man. I want to share some positivity on this channel, stuff that will impact your life. You want to know why I'm the man I am today? While I'm able to keep my cool and while I'm able to keep my composure and stay free for over 20 years now and stay married for over 20 years now and keep a job for over a decade and learn to have a better relationship, not just with society and my community, but even people who dislike me, and learn how to operate in life without blowing off the handle? Well, I'm going to put a video. I'm going to connect it at the end of this one. I'm going to put it in the description. You should watch it. It's about the 5 keys and the 5 areas of your life that you need to focus on to have a balance and be able to make it successfully in life. You want to have a successful business or a successful marriage? You want to have better relationships? Well, you got to learn how to deal with people. You got to learn what boundaries are. You got to learn responsibility. You got to learn to keep your cool. You got to learn to take criticism and rejection. That's not easy. And a lot of these dudes inside this prison, some of them ain't getting out. Some of them will get out. People make it out of prison every day. Some don't. Just recently in Louisiana, I saw a few articles where inmates were beat to death or shanked inside the prison. They didn't make it out. But also every day I see videos where dudes are being released. Not just from the smaller state prisons like DCI and Allen, but also place like Angola. Dudes are being released from there. There is hope. But if you live a life that's hopeless while you're in there, and when the opportunity comes for you to get out of prison and you didn't live your life right while you were in prison, why you want people to trust you in society? They can't trust you in prison. You want to drink alcohol. You want to use narcotics. You want to fist fight for every little thing that sets you off. I'm not talking about self-defense. In prison, I think even the prison staff and the parole board has some level of understanding when you have to self-defend yourself. There's some understanding to that. But when you constantly getting in fights or you got aggravated sex offense, that's what a lot of dudes get because they're in there jacking off to the free lady, or they jacking off to one of these females who come in there to try to witness the word of Christ. That's not changed, man. You ain't getting out of prison. Parole board's going to look at you like you crazy. And then you're going to go back, man, they got me bad, man. I can't never get a chance, man. Quit being a punk. Everybody's offended. But act and learn how to behave yourself. There are a lot of dudes in prison who behave themselves, who do the right thing, who find programs and become positive. I get it. You might seem hopeless if you got 40, 50-year sentence. You also got to look in the mirror and say a lot of it was on you. I had to say a lot of it was on me. I looked in the mirror. I changed my life. I didn't blame nobody. I blamed myself. I took responsibility. And were there people in my lives who failed me? Were there people who lied on me? Were there people who abused me and hated on me? Sure, absolutely. But if all I did was focus on that, I would not be the man I am today. And you shouldn't focus on it either. Recognize when people mistreat you and know how to deal with it and move forward. And don't let it destroy you and sink you, you know? Learn how to control your emotions. And look, don't bottle your emotions up either. That's another bad thing. You bottling your emotions up for so long that when something happens, you explode and go crazy like a maniac. I've been there, done that. I got the t-shirt for that one, times 20 or more, times 20, times 20, times 20, 20. I got tired of getting that t-shirt. Why do I blow up every time somebody tells me something? I can't live life like that. Am I perfected in the area? Absolutely not. But I'm leaps and bounds better in all areas of my life. You want to know how to sustain your finances? Well, you need to learn how to sustain your emotions, because you can get all the finances in the world, but if you emotionally can't control yourself, as soon as something happens, you're going to get sued because you don't punch somebody in the face because you can't regulate your emotions. And that ain't took all the money that you worked for. See, you was healthy financially, but you was unhealthy emotionally, couldn't control yourself. Relationally, you got 12 babies, mamas. You think you ever going to have any money? Unlikely. Small percentage of dudes like that. You know, you ain't Elon Musk. Man, I'm trying to speak some good stuff. I'm trying to help my community. Share in the comments, y'all. Let's get this forum going. What's something that you can say to the rest of the community that's advice? You might disagree with me. That's another thing we do on the Pen and the Shank. We can disagree with one another respectfully. See, don't get personal. You don't want to be calling nobody no name just because they said something you don't agree with. You can say like, nah, I don't really agree with that. I kind of have this stance on it. Cool. I get it. My thoughts. And ideas and ideals on things have changed throughout my life. They continue to do so as I gain knowledge. Some stuff I thought was true, I realize ain't true. Vice versa. They got some people, they willing to stand on a hill and die on their lies. Do not be willing to stand on a hill of your own lies and die. You will live a miserable existence and get buried as a miserable person. Constantly defending your own lies. Man, you got to be able to say, you know what? I don't know, man. I'm kind of messed up. I kind of shouldn't have did that. And look, you don't have to let nobody beat you up about it neither. We don't have to let nobody constantly accuse us for something that we already addressed and said we were sorry about. You do not have to receive that. I won't. Address it and do your best. But you ain't got to let nobody beat you up about it. But you should be able to talk about it without blowing up as well, man. And that's why I'm going back to this, man. In Louisiana, y'all say what y'all say. But see, it's a very violent prison system in Louisiana. But we also go to church. I get it. We might go to church and we might get to shanking the next day because, emotions can't be regulated. That's why you just can't be healthy spiritually, religiously. Spiritually, religiously, you got to be healthy in your spirit. But you can't just be healthy in your spirit, not your emotions, because your spirit's healthy. You just went to the thing and you worship God, but somebody stepped on your shoes and now you're ready to shank them. You can't live like that, man. I just thought this was a beautiful thing. And I think it's a good thing when people like Daddy Yankee stand up to the plate and say, hey, look, I just want to share the good news of Jesus with the guys in this prison. And he actually had an opportunity to witness to inmates all throughout the state because the state of Louisiana's prisons congregated in Angola this weekend for the rodeo. So he got to witness to a lot of people. And a lot of people are going to be changed. Is everybody there changed? No, they're not. Some people aren't changed. Some people probably went there for the wrong reasons. But don't be one of the people who are doing it for the wrong reasons. And while you're at it, give me another view on the video that I just told you about. That will really help the channel. Go check out some of my other videos. That will really help the algorithm, and I will very much appreciate it. I have memberships you can look into. Help us to grow the Pen and the Shank, get this community to the next level. Like and subscribe and share the video. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this more positive approach today that I had to offer from the Pen and the Shank. Let's go.